Okay, so today we're going to continue where we left off. I apologize. The last couple lecture recordings, the audio for some reason didn't come through other than the mouse clicking. So don't know what's going on, but I think I solved the problem this morning, but we'll see what happens. So I have where I left off yesterday, or on Monday, and today we're going to continue with this, and I'm going to work through the whole creation of the laser cut file. So at the end of today, you should actually have the whole laser cut file. That being said, you probably can submit your assignment, the first half of your assignment 202 today, because chances are you'll be ready to go laser cut. If you're not quite ready, there's still time before you actually have to submit the digital file. Anyway, I left it purposely at this state because I'm going to review switching the C-plane one more time, just in case you guys want to see it that way. And then I'm going to talk very specifically about how the corners work and how the valleys work and some of the areas where you might have some problems in your topography. So I want to make sure I go through that. And then after that, we're going to work on actually creating the physical file to go laser cut. And then I'll show you guys the assembly process next week. So anyway, we're going to continue on. This is where I was. This edge is a piece of the topography that I haven't done yet. And so I want to set up, once again, my C-plane to be in this view. What I tend to do is, especially now because it's been a couple days since I worked on the project, instead of trying to figure out what C-plane I was in, I just set it back to the top. So I'll go to set C-plane, and then I'll go to world top and make sure it's actually set to the world top. Then I'll come back and say set C-plane 3 points, and I'll start with it on this point right there. And if I zoom in, we can see my little axes there. First one is going to be going off in this direction, making sure that I'm not using my tracking or snapping, and that I'm just in the X or Y axis, depending on what's appropriate. And then I need to go up in the Z axis, so I'll use one of my other views and make sure that I can go straight up. There it is. And if I look in my perspective view, yes, my C-plane is set correctly there. Okay, so now that my C-plane is set correctly, I'm going to go back to my polyline. And I did have a couple people ask me why they couldn't get this to snap. If it's not snapping, chances are you don't have smart tracking on, so you do need that on. And we'll snap there. I want to make sure that I have perpendicular checked. There it is, and we'll start to work my way up. Okay, so here's a good example of something that can happen as we're working through this piece of terrain. I have one contour that comes around and it ends right back to where it was. Okay, so when that happens, I'm going to go and I'm on the upslope. I'm going to go straight across. Okay, now here's another good place, right? This is again the same contour, so the logical thing would be to continue going straight across, except that the contour cuts back the way I am, so I actually have to go down, over, and then back up. So you should never have a place where you've gone straight across twice. Okay, so in this instance I'm going to go down again, so I'll use this as my snap point. There it is. And then we'll continue over to there, back up, and then we'll continue going back up, back up. Okay, so I end there. Okay. Likewise, down here, I'm going to have to go down again to catch this. And in order to go down, it would be nice if I knew what my value was, which was 31 point something. Hold on, find me.
31.25.
Thank you. 31.250. So I'm going to do 31.250 feet. What?
200 scale.
Thank you. Feet. Going down, I'm going to come across and let those two intersect. Now, here's an interesting thing that I'm noticing. Right? When I went down, mine isn't 31, it's the other one. It's a 1 to 100 scale, so it's 15.625.
Yeah.
There we go. And now those should match quite nicely. So because I left this one long and I left that one long, I can go ahead and trim this corner. So we'll trim and get rid of that little piece, and I've made that corner nicely. Okay?
Yeah, you're going to show up joining this.
I'm going to get there to joining it. I haven't done it quite yet. Now I have this upper corner. I'm going to work around my corners and make sure that they're correct. Right? This one's easy because it's just a straight line and a straight line. So let me go back and set my C-plane to the world top. And I'll draw one straight line from there and another straight line from right there. And then I can trim off the end. So, okay, that turned out well. I don't need these points anymore, so I'm going to actually get rid of those. I could go through and select each individual point like this, but that takes a while. So I'm going to use a shortcut, which is SEL, which is short for select. And then you can see I can select a whole bunch of different things. And so I'll do select points, which is SELPT, select point, and I'll select all the points that are in my drawing, which makes life really easy because then I can press the delete key and get rid of them all at once. So it's just a shortcut. I don't have to do it, but it's nice. Okay. So let me look down at this corner. So once again, I have a corner on the down slope. I need to go down and over, and make those two match. So let me go ahead and set my C-plane here. So I'll go to set C-plane, 3 points. First will be off in this direction. Second one needs to be in the Z direction. There it is. So my C-plane set nicely. And I'll go ahead and draw from this point down 15 point, what was it, 625? 625 feet. And I'll go over. Okay, and I purposely left that long. So now I need to do the same thing in this plane. Right? And so I'm going to stay in the same C-plane because I know I can still go down. So I'll go ahead and go 15.625 feet. And that'll go down. Now, I can't, I'm still in the XY, but since I'm using my snap, I can snap to perpendicular. So it saves me from having to reset the C-plane. So I'll go to trim. Oops, trim. There we go. And I have that corner. Okay. Now we'll come up to this corner. I think I already did this corner. Right? Yeah, this one already comes up and over and up, so that looks good. When I go through these, I always like to check to make sure that I did the steps correctly. So I'm going up, I go straight across at the top, then I start going back down. When I get to this valley, right, I have to go down and over and then back up. Come up to the top, there's the crest. Come down here, and up across. Okay, that corner's good. So now all of my corners are great, okay, which is good. But I have a bunch of individual line segments as I work through this. So I want to make sure that I join those line segments together. The easiest place to do it is in the top view. So I'll work in the top view. We can make that big for right now. Let me select this. If I have a little tiny piece at either corner, I want to make sure I don't join it so that it goes around the corner. So I should be good. That one looks good. I'll type join, and that will join 5 curves joined into one open curve, which is exactly what I want. Let me go ahead and do this. And I always zoom in and check to make sure I didn't inadvertently select the wrong thing. I'll join. Okay, that one's all joined to this piece. Join 3 curves joined into one open curve. Do this last piece there. See, there was a mistake. I caught that last piece. And we'll join that as well. 3 curves joined into one open curve. So if I go back to my perspective view, I now have 1 curve on each side, like so. And what I need to start to build is the rest of this, basically the sides of this piece. And so I usually like to start with the lowest point, which in this particular example is going to be this corner right here. And I'm going to make sure that my C-plane is set for this corner, which it is. I could reset it again by going to set C-plane, world top. And then I could go back to set C-plane, 3 points. that direction, that direction, and I have my C-plane right at that corner. And so now I'm going to draw a line down to make the first piece of this side. Okay, and this dimension is completely arbitrary. Philip, you were asking me, what do you pick? I usually pick at least double my contours, sometimes triple. You could do more. It depends on how tall you want your model to be. If you start to get too tall, it's going to look awkward. So I don't do too much usually, but usually it's a couple times whatever my dimension would be. So my dimension is 15.625 feet. So maybe I'll do 50 feet. I don't know. Nice round number. 50 feet. All right, and it gives me a side there. Now I'll go ahead and draw a side that extends off in that direction, and I'll come back and I'll draw a line down perpendicular to meet there, and then I can go ahead and trim off that piece. Sorry, my head's in the way.
Sorry.
And so I'll end up with one side, right? There's my pieces and there's my top. So let's go ahead, for clarity purposes, and join that together. 3 curves joined into one closed curve, and I now have a complete side for one of my models. So let's continue this process. Okay? And once you've drawn the first one, it's generally pretty easy. Now the problem here is that my C-plane won't let me do this side yet. So I need to set my C-plane, and I can go ahead and set my C-plane back to world top, and I can probably do the bulk of this from there. So I'll go ahead and draw my line out, and then I'll draw a line that snaps from here, and because I have perpendicular snap on, we'll see it'll let me snap down. So that saves me from changing the C-plane. Again, we'll do a trim. Like that. And then we'll rotate around, and so you can see I now have the first 2 sides. We'll do the next side here. Same strategy. We'll run a line long. We'll run a line down perpendicular, and then we'll trim. Like that. Okay, so what I haven't done yet is join these together. Now, unfortunately, this line segment is already part of the front, so I have to redraw that line segment one more time, so that I can select just that line segment, and then we can select there, there, and there, and we'll join. Same thing here, where we have to do a line that goes from here down to there. Oops. Join. And now we'll get the last piece. And I like to build this out in 3 dimensions because you can kind of see what the model's going to look like. So it helps to see it as part of the visualization process here. And I'll join those together. Okay. So I now have a complete, what looks like it will eventually be my complete model. Okay. So now I need to start working through the pieces and making them ready to laser cut. And so right now is a very good time to save. So I'll go ahead and go to File, Save, make sure I've saved my work. This is still in full scale, so I haven't done any scaling operations to it yet. I haven't done any laser cut transformations. So after I've saved it, I'm going to go ahead and do a File, Save As, and I'm going to take my file and append _laser cut, because now I'm going to start to make serious changes to this file. Okay, so I have my original. In case I screw something up, I can go back to it. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use Rotate 3D to fold each of these sides flat, because obviously I have to cut them out. So we'll use Rotate 3D, which is under to Transform, Rotate 3D. My rotation axis is going to be along the base of each side, and so I'll just fold this flat, and then I repeat the process. Rotation axis there. We'll take what is going up and fold it flat. Repeat the process there. Fold that side flat. Repeat the process. And fold that side flat. So if I were to look at this in the top view, we're starting to see that each of the sides, right, are now folded out such that I can cut them out and glue them together. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you fold them in or fold them out in terms of cutting them out, but you have to be consistent. You can't fold some in and some out, right? So fold them all out or fold them all in. To me, for whatever reason, folding them out seems to make the most sense.
It would overlap if you fold them.
You're going to have to move them anyway.
Oh.
Okay? So I now have those folded out and I have my topo lines, but at this point everything is still scaled to full size. Okay? Now the good news is on these objects, I know that this is ultimately going to be 11 inches and this is ultimately going to be 17 inches because I followed the little chart at the bottom. So scaling becomes really easy. So let me go ahead and select my object, and it doesn't matter whether you do this in the top view or the side view, and I'm going to type scale, right, which is under transform scale, and it's just going to be a scale 3D, a normal scale, right? And I will pick from one of these corner points to one of these corner points. Now I know right now that that length, right, which currently is, if I look at my scale and stuff, which currently is 1,700 feet, right, that's going to be 17 inches. So I can type in a value of 17 inches, and everything gets really, really tiny because we just went from 1,700 feet to 17 inches. So everything's still selected though, so if I type Z for zoom and then S for selected, we see the piece. Same thing, and I like to do it in all of my views. Zoom selected, zoom, zoom selected, zoom selected. Right? So I get back to where everything is shown. Okay? So that's good. Okay, everything looks pretty good so far. Now that I'm at this size, it's going to be time to start arranging these objects and being able to work with them. So what I'll do is I'll create just a rectangle, and I'll probably end up with several of these. And then I want this rectangle to be 12 inches by 24 inches, which represents the size of the laser cutter bed. And I want several of these because I'm going to start to lay out each of the boards that I'm going to cut. So I'll say at 24 inches, comma 12 inches. So that's one laser cut bed. And we'll go ahead and copy a few of these. Right, and now I can start to lay out the pieces that I'm going to cut. So we'll take this piece first and we'll move it. Let me turn off ortho for a second. We'll move it over here. Right. Let me take this piece. I'll move this over here. Take this piece. There. Right, and we'll take this piece. And I can probably squeeze it in. Right there. Right? If you can't squeeze it in, you can rotate those so that they fit on the piece of cardboard. This outer circle, or this outer rectangle, represents the overall cutter size. The laser cutter can't cut all the way to the edge. Right? It leaves maybe an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch around the sides, so you can't do a full cut. It's got to be slightly smaller. But that's already laying out my first board. Okay? Now, when I get here, right, I have my topo lines, and this is where the tricky part comes in. I do need a border that goes all the way around my lines. Okay? And if we're looking at it right now, I don't have the corners. So I'll use a rectangle, and I'll use my tracking to get myself a corner and another corner like that. And you can see that it's still, it's in a flat plane, but these pieces aren't flat yet. Okay? What I want to do is I want to make everything like this appear perfectly flat. So you've already done the project command before. We're going to do a project again. But before I even get there, I'm going to start organizing my layers because I want to do these projections. So I'm going to create a new master layer. We're going to call this laser cut. Under laser cut, I'm going to do a sublayer for cut, a sublayer for engrave, and a sublayer for, I don't know, we'll call it guides. Okay? So we're going to start with the guides layer. I'm going to make that active, and I'm now going to project this set of topo lines onto a flat surface. So let me go ahead and do just a rectangle surface corner to corner, larger than my surface. And let me switch into shaded mode so we can kind of see this. Now right now, right, if we were looking in three-dimensional space, right, wherever that plane is somewhere. I don't even know where it is. Right? Let's see. It's probably floating in space somewhere. Right? So it's there, up where these are. My little pieces are somewhere way up high or way below. I have no idea. So let's go back. Zoom selected. Oops. Zoom selected. Okay. So let me come back to that. Why did I lose that? That's pleasant, right? They're still there. Thanks, Rhino. Okay, so let me go ahead and create that plane like I wanted to. Okay. And you know what? Let's take everything. Tell you what, let's take, because I'm having trouble with this, let me take my terrain here. I'm going to move, right, this point to be 0, 0, 0. Right, because I'm having trouble with things being very separate. Then we'll move this point to be 0, 0. They'll overlap for a second, but everything is now back kind of in the same plane. That kind of stuff happens when we do major scaling operations. It looks like I lost this. Zoom selected. Zoom selected. Zoom selected. Okay, so I'm back. Let me go ahead and create that rectangle. Like so. And if we were looking at it in 3 dimensions, now we can see that everything's looking more normal. And I'm going to go ahead and project. Select curves. Those are my curves. I want to project them onto this plane, which is flat in the ground plane. And I end up with a complete set of curves. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and move these curves before I deselect them. Move. So that they're over here on one of these boards. And at this point, this other information doesn't really matter. So I'm going to take all of this, put it on my guides layer, and then I'll turn everything else off. I can delete this surface because I don't need it anymore. Okay, so now I have my topo lines, a blank page, and the sides. Okay? So in order to do this cutout process, I want to save paper and a lot of or cardboard. And a lot of times people do topos. The one in the back that 220 did is a good example, and they cut out a separate sheet for every piece of topo, right? Unfortunately, with that method, you need a lot of cardboard. The models tend to turn out well, but you're not being particularly efficient with your materials. So what I do instead is I make the insides hollow, right? And I use 2 sheets. And that's all it takes. So I'm going to take this, this piece of topography, select it like this, and I'm going to copy it so I have 2 versions of it. So I'll copy one up here. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to change the colors first so you can see this happen. I'm going to make sure my cut is red and my engrave is blue. And that's something that the laser cutter looks to. If you've laser cut before, you know this. It looks for red and it looks for blue. Reds are always cuts, blues are always engraves. Okay, so I just go ahead and make my layers red and blue. And now I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, okay, starting in this corner, right, every other line I'm going to select. So I'll select there.
No.
Thank you. Okay, I can select the border too. Okay, and I'm going to make all of these on the cut layer. So I'll right click and say change object layer, And those are now all on the cut layer. Now, before I do anything else, up above, right, I'm going to start with the opposite line. So I started with the first line here. This time I'm going to start with that line. And now I'll do the same thing, holding down Shift, and we'll select those in pieces. Okay, looks pretty good. Now, we've got a couple little challenging places. This needs to be selected, and these, that should be selected because it's part of this. It gets cut right there, right? And that should be selected. So I want to make sure that I examine those and make sure that I pick the correct pieces, which I did. Okay, and all of these are going to go on the cut layer. So I'll change object layer, and those all turn red. Okay. Now I'd like to help me do the alignments. Oh, I should also do the border. Layer. There we go. Now I'd like to make each of these an engrave. So I'm going to select the opposite set. And I'm going to change those to be engraved.
The border.
No, border's going to stay red for both of them because it needs to be cut out for both of them. So now I'll come through and we'll select this set. And if I did it correctly, they should be the exact opposite of each other. And I'll change these to be on the engraved layer. Okay, so I have two versions of the exact same topo where I've alternated red, blue, right? The difference being that I started with the opposite line. Okay. Now what's going to happen is when the laser cutter cuts them out, right, I'll be able to take the first one from the first pile followed by the first one from the second pile and combine them together. And so you keep, it's kind of like shuffling a deck of cards. Take one from one pile, one from the other pile, and as you glue them together, they will always glue and stack. And I'll bring over the example again. I should have brought it before you guys so you can look at it again. But this will help you assemble basically every other piece. In some rare instances, for what you're doing for this class, it won't be an issue. But if you were doing something with an extraordinarily dense piece of terrain, or your material was very thin, so you had a lot of contours to cut, sometimes instead of doing every one, you'll do every third or every fourth, right? And cut it 4 times instead of just twice. So you lose a little bit more material, but it gives you more space to glue. This will work fine for what we're doing in the class. So up here, on all the sides, those all need to be cut out as well. So I'll take each of those and I'll change those to be on the cut layer. And now those are on the cut layer. These black pieces are guides. You could make them one of the colors. Sometimes I do just so that the laser cutter, if accidentally it's misaligned, it won't go through and rasterize these. So we'll go ahead and select those and we'll put them on one of the layers as well. I'll just do it on the engrave layer. Okay, and so now what I have is the complete set of AutoCAD files that I need to be able to cut on the laser cutter. And I have them all set up like this. So now that I'm here, I'll select everything and I'll go to File, and actually before I do anything, let's get rid of all the layers that I don't need anymore. Right, so we'll get rid of all those layers. Yes, there are objects on them. No, it looks like it came with a block on this. So let me release that block. I'm going to go to Edit, Blocks, Block Manager, and I'll delete these blocks. And now I'll be able to delete that. So all I end up with is the laser cut layer with my cut and engrave layers. I could actually get rid of my guides layer too. Trying to make it as simple as possible. Remember, I did a save as, so I can go back to my old file, which has all the full-size content in it. So I'll select these, and I'll go up to File, and then Export Selected. And I'm going to change to AutoCAD BWG. And I want to make sure it's in 212. And I'm going to call this laser cut, and I'll go ahead and click save, and it'll bring up my DWG export options. The default scheme is fine. You could do 2004 lines. Any of the 2004s are fine, but the default is just fine as well. I'll go ahead and say OK, and it will have then made my AutoCAD export, which is what I need in order to cut it on the laser cutter. Okay. There's one more piece to this puzzle, in that I have the colors assigned to the layers correctly. The last piece is that I have to assign a line weight to all of these lines for it to cut correctly on the laser cutter. You don't need to do the line weights here. When you go over there, you can actually assign the line weights to the layers. Even though you can't save or edit your files in any way, you can still do that over there. But all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open that up in AutoCAD so we can see it. So let me go to my flash drive. And here's the AutoCAD file. I haven't checked yet if the laser cutter has the 2014 software on it. I'm pretty sure it does. This will always pop up when you open an AutoCAD file that wasn't created by AutoCAD, and you want to continue opening it. And lo and behold, I end up with right, my layers have come in, and all of my lines have come in exactly as I want them. The only thing that you need to do here, you can do it again on the laser cutter if you'd rather, is I'm going to go into the layer properties, and the line weights, which are shown here, come in as default. Okay, those three things need to change to 0.00, and I'll pick it on each layer to 0.00. I'll say OK. 0.00. Okay. There will be somebody in the laser cutter room who can help you. I've already prepped them that you may need a little bit of help making sure your line weights are correct, such that you can get your cuts correct. Okay. But if you can do it in AutoCAD, all the better. Those are now done. I can go ahead and save my file, and I can close my AutoCAD file. So that's all the AutoCAD you need in this class. It's very simple AutoCAD, but it is there. This is the file that I'm going to ultimately laser cut. Okay, and I will cut this as an example, and next week I'll glue it together. Hopefully somebody will have brought in some tacky glue for me. Somebody must have it. We can find some. And I will glue it together in front of you so you can see how the whole gluing together process happens. Okay, so today, if you work efficiently, I think it's reasonable that you could get through to this stage where you've exported an AutoCAD file. If that happens, right, when you post your work for exercise 213, that's fine. Create a whole second post for assignment 202. So you'll actually create two posts, one for the assignment, one for the exercise. Don't use the same post. Okay? And then I will be able to check you off for you did the first part of the assignment 202. Obviously, you still have to laser cut it and glue it together and give it to me, but at least you will have done the first part. Okay? Are there any questions or anything you want me to go back over? No? Okay. I'll turn you loose, and of course, if you have questions, let me know, and we'll go from there.